Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Running Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah, and today we are continuing with our series, the exercises that actually helped move the needle for my clients' labral tears. Today we are going through back. So the back exercises that actually helped move the needle for my clients' hip labral tears. And today I'm coming at you live with a really fun case. This is actually a gal that I get to still work with, which is so fun. So I'm really excited to watch her just continue to make amazing gains as we go through 2026 together. This gal, so if you're new to this series, what we've been doing or what I've been doing is instead of just giving you random back exercises, I want to give you context. Like I really, truly, truly believe that doing random exercises that you found on the internet that you're doing from high school, that even like a PT friend that gave you that aren't specific to you, aren't specific to the day, the week, the time that you're having, is just going to leave you frustrated because you feel like you're putting in the work, but you're not getting the results. What I want to give you is like the real life context of like the step-by-step gains that we did to like start with the exercise when like basically like something hit the fan and like things didn't go well, how we like twisted it, and then how we were able to progress the exercises when things felt good. So let's go through our back kind of case today, and I'm so excited to go ahead and get started. So this client's name is Sarah. I've just changed all the clients' names to Sarah because that's just me. And this client is phenomenal. She's so sweet. She actually, when she first started talking to me, she was working with a physical therapist who was also a run coach, which I was like, oh my gosh, that's so fun. Like there's not that many of us out there. So that's really sweet. And she was like, she's doing my run programming for me and she's doing my strength. And she was like, I just don't feel like I'm making a lot of progress. I've invested in this for a little bit now. And, I just don't think it's working. So like, I want to have a fresh perspective, which is awesome, guys. Like, honestly, I feel like there are people that I've worked with that I'm like, I love you, I adore you, but like I need a fresh perspective and no hard feelings. So she went ahead and started working with me. And some of the biggest things that we noted for her, so kind of like the biggest problems that she was having is she was able to consistently run, but it was inconsistently comfortable. Like she would run and then kind of get flared up and have to take time off, get flared up, have to take time off. She was really doing a lot of run walk with her coach as she was like having more flare-ups, and she was like, I just don't feel like that's getting to the root of the issue. This gal was actually a collegiate athlete, and she has since graduated and has been working professional for years now and has had on and off hip pain for like probably since college, and has just gone through the cycle of like being comfortable with running, not being comfortable with running, wanting to work up to these different races. She like lives in a big city in the United States and wanted to do there's like so many cool races in the cities, and she just wanted to be a part of those. And also is just like generally pretty active. Like she loves to go to the gym. She like rides her bike around the city a lot to like meet up with friends and do things. And she just wanted to be able to like live her life without being like, is my hip going to flare up with this day? So when we kind of took her through the Discover phase and the Empower Hip program, which is basically the initial phase of like figuring out what's going on. The develop phase is like middle phase of just kind of progressing the exercise and run and strength program along. And then the deploy phase is figuring out how you're going to maintain this forever. And the Discover phase, we really found that like her biggest complaint was like, she's like, my hip flexors are always tight. Like my hip flexors will be super pissed off. But we actually found that like when kind of going through the movement screen that I'll do for motions that are pertinent and important to meet the demands of running, when we're having her go through some upper body motions, stuff like rotation and bending and leaning backwards, to see how the back does with those things, because our back is going to need to be like rotated and loaded and move through all the ranges of motion with running. But she wasn't comfortable. Like she was like, my back isn't comfortable. Like it just doesn't feel super like secure. And what I know to be true is that oftentimes like hip flexor tightness and back kind of weakness or poor coordination or strength deficits can be a huge reason that hip flexors are consistently tight, because our hip flexors actually insert onto our back. So if you didn't know that, now you know. So for her, of course, we worked on some hip stability things. She has a little bit like decreased stability. But the biggest thing was like, I just found that she like really wasn't using her back a lot. Like she wasn't super confident with her back muscles. She kind of felt like uneasy going into different back positions. And a huge thing that we look at is like, or a huge way that I can relay this to you in layman's terms, I suppose, or like just a really easy test is that when she was doing her squat, when she chooses to do her squat, she has a super, super far forward trunk lean. Okay. So if you imagine this, if I am doing a squat and I'm leaning all the way forward, I'm actually putting my back muscles on slack. So I'm actually not necessarily using them as much as if I'm upright and I'm a little bit more, I don't have to be all the way upright, but like somewhere in between straight upright and erect, and somewhere between like basically putting my chest to my knees. And like in that middle region, my back is actually working to allow my trunk to not fall down. So if my back muscles are working, if you think like of like a good morning exercise where it's like you're kind of like hinging forward from the top, you think of like your back muscles are like lowering your trunk down so that you don't fall down. If I am just all the way forward and I'm all the way at the bottom of range, I'm actually not using my back muscles really that much. Same thing of like a bicep curl. So if I am starting at the top of the range, my fist is really close to my shoulder and I'm lowering. In that midsection, I'm working my bicep really hard. But if I'm lowering all the way to straight, my bicep is actually on slack. It's called passive insufficiency. There's like so much lengthening. It's actually just reached the final length, and like the muscle fibers are actually not necessarily crossing so that they can't actually like engage. That was like way too much information, but nonetheless, the fibers are not actually working. So I'm not engaging. So I'm not really getting any bicep curl. So what I want to do is get back up into where my elbow is maybe closer to, or my elbow is like not all the way straight so that my bicep is actually active and engaged. So for her, she's leaning so far forward, not having a lot of back engagement. And yeah, she's just not really using her back and not feeling super confident with that. So one of the first things that we did with her was we actually just, and she also like really was like, okay, we always go through what things feel good for your hip, what things don't necessarily feel good. She was like, oh my gosh, I love these like different hamstring exercises. Like she's like, I love like being on a Swiss ball and extending my legs out, or like the hamstring, like prone, like laying on your stomach hamstring machine and like pulling in. Oftentimes when people tell me that, it actually tells me that they need more back stability, because when I'm doing those hamstring activations, my back has to be like on to stabilize from the core. And then I'm like moving my hamstring there. So that was just interesting to me. So the first thing that we did was like, okay, let's start recruiting your back with exercises that are pertinent to being able to meet the demands of running. So for her squat, I actually just had her like hold a weight out in front of her. So this cued her to not go all the way down forward, but to stay upright a little bit more. And then we worked on some of the mechanics of her squat that way. And she was able to do that really comfortably, really well. From there, I also had her do like a really gentle, light back rotation exercise. So I had her, maybe you've seen this on some of my stuff, but I had her take a really, really light band. Does not have to be heavy at all. She like wraps around her whole body, and then she's just gently twisting. So her lower body and hips are staying straight forward, and then she's just twisting her upper body. What this is doing is we have these little muscles. There are postural muscles that attach really deep into our spine. They're not our big lat muscles. They're not our like iliocostalis muscles or our longissimus muscles, but they're like our erector spinae. So they're really deep into our spine. And what they do is they're postural. So they're tonic. They're on all day long. They keep us sitting, they keep us comfortable, so on and so forth. If we are a more mobile person, or we maybe had back injuries, these actually tend to turn off. Same thing as like the deep glute muscles, not like off, but like they don't tend to be as like active and engaged. And then therefore we can start to get different pathologies that are happening in our back. So this exercise is super light, super easy, because we're just trying to get a low stimulus in there to get some of those postural stabilizing muscles to activate and to recruit, so that we can be a little bit more on and recruited and comfortable in through our back. So we had her start with that, and that was just a nice, easy way to get those things primed. And then we had her do a couple of different hip exercises. So she was like using her back as she was kind of using those exercises. Maybe like the same framework and principle as like, which don't hate me for saying this, but like maybe doing a clamshell before you do like a squat or something. So you're like, oh, or like hip extension. So you're like, oh, like my glute is a little bit more on. Maybe not necessarily the same premise, but it's like I am doing something to kind of like warm up and engage, so that therefore when I'm doing these bigger motions for other exercises, like these things are feeling on and ready to go. So that's what we started her with. So basically the first two things was like making sure that she was like utilizing her back and like her just bigger lifts. So her squats and her squats. And then just starting to get just gentle back recruitment in a way that was comfortable and not causing her to be painful. And this was actually really helpful to decrease some of the tension through her hip flexors. From there, if someone responds really well to these like kind of specific back exercises, this is me, guys. Like this is me to a T also. Like I respond really well to these, and these actually like, took a lot of pain from my labral tear away. But for her, I like to progress these exercises to different challenges. So maybe I'll have her do like an isometric hold. So she's like doing the easy gentle rotation, and then she's going to an isometric hold. What that is going to do is I'm not adding resistance because those muscles aren't necessarily needing to be strengthened. They just need to be endured. They need to have better endurance. So she's doing the isometric. We're allowing more motor units, more soldiers to come to the fight. So we're getting more robust activation around those muscles. And then I also had her progress to like kind of a faster progression. So she's like twisting into the band, and then she's going like quick, pause, quick, pause. So it's like, can my muscles activate under speed? And every week we were like, okay, how does this feel? I know it's not going to feel super challenging because it should be kind of a light, simple exercise. And she'd be like, okay, this is actually feeling good. I feel confident with it. I feel like I have the control down. And then I'm like, okay, let's progress to this isometric, and then let's progress to this speed demand. And it was just a really cool way for her to gain a lot of confidence into her back, where previously, like when we were kind of going through the rotation and the bendings to see how her running, I see how these things would fare out when she was trying to meet the demands of running, it was uncomfortable, and then it became comfortable. And we were also seeing decreased tightness into her hip flexors. So that was kind of like her specific back progression. And then from there, we just wanted to make sure that her back was really comfortable with heavier lifts. So as her back and hip were comfortable with heavier lifts. So we progressed her to like squats, like loaded single leg squats, deadlifts, hip thrusts, like just a bunch of different lifting exercises that she was actually super confident and comfortable with, but we just made sure that those things were super like comfortable as she was doing them. And then another thing that we did towards the end of the program was, instead of just using this super simple like banded back rotation exercise where we're like putting a low load in and kind of practicing the coordination through these different feeds and tempo holds and whatnot, we actually progressed her to a back endurance exercise. So I had her do like kind of the back extension machine at the gym, or you could do it over a Swiss ball where you're like feet are locked in, your trunk is like leaning forward, and then you're like kind of pulling yourself up. We had her start gingerly with that and then kind of progress up to a higher set rep scheme. So she was actually building endurance through there. And this was extremely comfortable for her. And then we really went into like the heavier lifting protocols and making sure that she was comfortable with the hip thrusts, the squats, the deadlifts, so on and so forth, and even doing those things in single leg. And the really cool thing is, because we went through all of these progressions and we were like, wow, these things are really comfortable. You gained like a lot of confidence in just like your like simple foundational movements, like a squat, a single leg squat without weight. You've gained confidence with like being able to rotate and bend and move through your back comfortably with this like simple banded exercise. You've been able to do it comfortably with different speeds. You've been able to progress to like the endurance kind of like bend overs or extension machine. And you've been able to progress to like these heavier lifts. What was really cool is, like, for my clients in the Empower Hip program, we always together curate a rescue plan. And this is like, okay, if I have a lot of hip flexor tightness, what are the things throughout the program that have felt really, really good for me that I can enact if my hip flexors are extremely tight? Okay, so for her, we had a rescue plan. I think it was something like rolling bridges or like bridges that felt really good for her because it was able to get her glutes to recruit, her back to recruit, and it was able to turn off the hip flexors. What we were able to do at the end of the program, because she made it through all of these progressions and they felt super comfortable, we were able to be like, oh my gosh, like if your hip flexors are tight, like what if we just actually do like the most challenging thing that really targets the backs and the glutes really well to kind of help turn off the hip flexors that is not going to aggravate your hip flexors. So we were able to kind of change to, I think it was like the back extension and then like an isometric of like the back rotation, where she's able to get a high amount of recruitment and kind of turn off those hip flexors. So what I'm saying here is the nice thing of like having a rescue plan for my clients is super important. Like I want them to be like, oh, if something is sore, like I can kind of do something about it. But as we are able to progress from like maybe really simple rudimentary foundational exercises to more challenging things, we can pick anything in the spectrum that actually works for that person to maybe help them overcome like soreness and symptoms that they have. This idea of a rescue plan is foreign to you. Probably is, because I don't really know anyone else that does it. But quick tangent, like when I was in my clinicals, when I was PT school, I learned about this concept of like using exercise as like pain reduction. Like one of my clinical instructors worked with a ton of people that were, like I don't really know. The demographic was interesting. Like, I just don't feel like there was like a high education to it. A lot of them had back pain. It was a very like chronic pain, like not necessarily chronic pain, but it was just very like, I have back pain. This is what I do. My family's had back pain. Like I'm 60, 70 years old now. Like this is just my life now. And she really worked to like break that, not spell, but she really worked to just break that mindset and be like, okay, you have back pain right now. Like you have back pain right now. We have been working for you to not have back pain. You've been consistent with your exercises. If you have a day that you're really sore, I don't want you to just sit in your chair all day and just like mope or this being mean, but like, I don't want you to just mope around and just pretend that this is your life now. Like you have had better days. So let's actually input certain exercises that you feel comfortable with. And for them, like sometimes it was literally sitting at the edge of their chair and like doing like banded, basically like putting a band around the top of their knees and doing like banded hip abduction, or like their knees coming out and just getting gentle muscle activation through their hips and back to get some engagement. And honestly, once these people started taking this to heart and be like, okay, I had some soreness on Saturday. What I did was I did these exercises, and a simple exercises seated at my chair. It was nothing crazy. And they were like, what it started to do is it started to empower them. Instead of being like, my back is sore, this is where I'm at now for the rest of my life, it started to be like, oh, like if I do this, then I could get up and I could go shower and I could brush my teeth and I can eat breakfast with my husband and get my day started. Like it started to give them hope back into them. And when I started working with more specifically with runners that have these kind of like chronic hip issues, it was like, well, runners with labral tears and hip and fidget dysplasia all the time. I was like, homegirl, like we could do the same thing. Like if you know that there are things that feel comfortable for you, like let's curate that so that when you do get a flare up, you're not just like, you know, like my life is over and this is where I'm at now, but it's really like, this is where I'm at and this is what I can't do. So we were just able to kind of like tailor it, her rescue plan to be a little bit more specific to where she was at, and where she's at now. She is strength training 2 to 3 days a week. She's just doing like heavy, quote unquote, normal strength training, squats, deadlifts, like step ups, like just like not random, but like they're not super tailored to like her hip specifically. She's doing compound strength training, meaning like some heavier lifting. And then she's doing some simple exercises that are really tailored to her hip and back that are kind of like her accessory work. She's not like super married to them. I should say this. She's a little bit married to them for like the next 2 months. Like typically when people are done in the Empower Hip program, I'll be like, hey, stay with these for like the next 2 months. And then you can kind of drop off a little bit, just as like a maintenance kind of protocol. And then things that she's looking for this year, or looking forward to this year, is a 10 miler in a couple of weeks, and then a full marathon later this year. So I'm really, really excited I'm just excited that I got to watch her progress. I'm excited that like she trusted me, like even though she was working with a PT and a run coach, like it's just really fun that she would join my coaching program, and just entrust me. And I'm really excited for the progress that she's made. And I hope that this story has helped anyone that's like, oh my gosh, like maybe like there is a back protocol for me, or a core or a plyometric or a glute protocol for me. This is our 3rd episode in this series. So if you're loving this, I did a core, the core exercises that helps move the needle for my clients labral tear, the glute exercises, and then next we're going to do plyometrics. So happy that you're hanging along, and look forward for the next one.